one of the parents was a reporter and wrote an article in the Montgomery newspaper about this guy who's serving in the Air Force who came to my kid's school and freaked us out and beat the calculators. And then he showed my kid how to do some mental math. And that little story went on the wire. And I got a call from a national television show in New York City called Regis and Kathy Lee.
Welcome to the Recalibrated. I'm your host, Meade Kincke, and I'm here to take us through the journey of being in the service, transitioning out, and what today looks like. Our guest, Scott Flansburg, served over 6 years with the United States Air Force Office of Special Investigations, working in the Tech Services Division, supporting high-level investigative and intelligence operations. Today, he is the founder and CEO of Herkimer Originals and its foundation, where he preserves the true origins of basketball. The National Counting Bee, a contest to encourage mental maths exercises, and Scott is known worldwide as the Human Calculator, where he helps people of all ages see the beauty and power of numbers with confidence. Scott holds the Guinness World Record for fastest human calculator, and he is the best-selling author of Math Magic and Math Magic for Kids. He has been featured on countless talk shows, sharing his work and encouraging a better understanding and appreciation of mathematics. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, glad to have you, good sir. So, as we always do in the wonderful tradition, let's start with the why. What drew you to the Air Force?
1988 or 1982, I was getting out of high school and I was going to go to a college in upstate New York near my hometown. And I had a personality conflict with my English teacher. And uh, I took advanced English, AP English, it was called. And he ended up giving me a 69 average. And you have to have a 70 to get a credit for that class. And in the state of New York, you have to have an English credit in order to graduate. And so it was my senior year. I had signed up for delayed enlistment program for the Air Force, and it was still optional. Like I could have withdrawn or, but I had everything done. And then as soon as that happened, my scholarships for math and everything else evaporated. And so I was very distraught. I only found out 2 days before graduation. I had to turn my gown back in. I didn't get to walk across the stage.
Wow.
Had to cancel my party. Didn't go to any other parties. I was so upset, and just left for the Air Force like the next day. And I just said, "Hey, let's go."
Goodness.
Yeah. So that was
full-blown scorched earth, just like, no, I'm done. We're done now.
Well, and I knew I didn't want to stay where I was in upstate New York in that little town. I'd been there my whole life, and I thought going a couple hours away to college would be enough. And when that all disappeared, I couldn't wait to get in the service, just to have that option available. So I got lucky that I had set up for that DEP beforehand.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's uncustomary. I'll say you have a unique tale. So tell us about humble beginnings. Like you go from day one going like, I guess high school is over, to bam, in the service. How did you start out?
I didn't know what was coming. I was so unprepared because I really thought I was going to go to college and take math and play baseball, and that was my whole world. And it went to you're going to get an extremely short haircut, and you're going to have somebody telling you what to do for the next several months, if not years. And
Wow.
yeah, and it was quite an adjustment to go from one extreme to the other. So yeah, but my dad served in the Air Force for a brief time. He actually ran a
Okay.
farm when he was put in the Air Force or went in the Air Force, and a bunch of stuff happened back in upstate New York where people had to go back to help with their farm. So my dad actually went back, but he always said he loved the Air Force and had a great time. And
Gotcha.
so it was okay. I wasn't totally shocked, but I wasn't mentally prepared.
It sounds like not mentally and probably not emotionally as well. It's like you kind of the joke thing of you break up with a girl and you get the breakup beard. Like you kind of did the opposite of like, okay, broke up with the high school, had the head shaved, and then just went straight into it.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
it was
goodness.
quite a shock, and it was probably a good way to go in though, because I never could have been prepared for
Hmm.
what life in the military was like. I was a sports guy, and I was a
Sure.
math person, always thinking about math and numbers and things like that. And to
Sure.
go into a space where you really need to be focused when you go in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
military, they don't accept anything less. So, yeah, it was quite an
Not so
adjustment.
much. Yeah, it very much again like we've talked about this a lot of it's regimented. We can say it that way. Of like you know who you're answering to, you know who are answering to you, and you know what time you eat, you know what time you do things. So it's a little bit jarring. Like oh, that's hilarious. So going from day one just thrown into the dark, how did you end up in the tech services division?
Yeah, I got really lucky. I was down at let's see, Lackland Air Force Base doing my basic
Sure.
training, and I ended up at Keesler, Biloxi,
Hmm.
for my
So funny.
training. I was 702 is what they ended up putting
I've been
me.
to Keesler.
Yeah, and so everything is different. I mean, not just the job, the environment, the location. Like, and I didn't know where I was going. At Lackland, you just
Sure.
sort of find out what's going on.
Sure.
So yeah, there were a lot of surprises, a lot of twists and turns, and it just helped me realize that I was completely out of control of what was happening to me. And so I was at the base, and somehow a TV station heard about my abilities to do numbers in my head very
Oh,
quickly.
that's so funny.
And they asked permission to come on base to interview me. And the base commander was like, "What? Who? What was this guy? What's going on?" And so he had me go into his office, and he goes, Why do these people want to talk to you? This is very, not normal in the service."
Sure.
And I told him, what I could do, and gave him a demonstration, him and his staff. And they
Mhm.
said, "Oh, you know what? All right, we'll let them interview you." And
Okay.
that moment of having to be in front of him is what afforded me the opportunity to get a special duty assignment to work with the OSI in Japan. And so
Oh,
I
that's
went
too
from being
cool.
I was supposed to be a 702 for a church, an Air Force church up in Northern California. And
That's so funny.
I ended up being in Japan working for OSI District 46, and got into the counterintelligence division and got to see all the crazy things that we were doing, even back then in the
That is,
80s.
to say a stark difference. Now, I know you technically already have the moniker of the human calculator, but it sounds like it would have been much more apt to just call you the human kite, because you would just tell like, "Where's the wind blowing? Where I'm going to Japan? Is that sure? I'm a little tall for Japan, but fine, that'll be fine." Like,
Yeah, that worked out. Well, I ended up
goodness.
getting married over there and stuff. But the
Oh,
first
too
job that
fun.
when you get your job offers, when you're going through the training, the first one was a refrigerator repairman, and I said, "Well, I got I got no inclination towards that." And then
Free
the
on, not in the
70
future.
nah, and then the 702 thing came up, and it was very flexible, and the
Uh-huh.
assignments were very cool. Like,
Sure.
702 opens up the whole world for you. Um, and then this meeting with the base commander, where he just, a week later, I was told that I was offered a special duty assignment to go to
That's
Japan for
so
4 years,
funny.
and I was like, yeah, that sounds fun. I'll go.
I can only imagine, like, again, the playing back that particular exchange, we'll call it that way, of hold on a moment. Why are there news cameras? Who know we're here? Who's causing trouble? What's he called? Scott, get him in. Like, it's just one of those kinds of
Yeah,
things of like, we don't have celebrities here, sir. What are you doing?
yeah, and it came out of right field. Even the interview, I think it was one of my family
Wow.
members lived nearby and knew
Sure.
somebody or something. I mean, it was just so random. The whole thing
That's so
was, and
funny.
I went from being a refrigerator repairman in Mississippi to being a 702 in California at a church for a Air Force preacher, or not a preacher, whatever they call them, and
Pastor.
um, a pastor, and then
Yeah, yeah.
a special duty assignment to Tokyo. So yeah, all within a couple of weeks, and so yeah, it was interesting. And then I ended up meeting my wife in Japan, and that was fantastic. She was a
So
daughter
fun.
of a chief master sergeant who his wife was full Japanese, and they had lived there forever. So I got totally
Gotcha.
integrated into the space. I learned Japanese, and I got to
So
do a lot
fun.
of stuff for the Air Force. In a role where I could use my fluency to just help out in certain situations like golf
That's
tournaments and
so
softball
wild.
tournaments. So I ended up doing all these things that I just never saw coming.
Definitely not. Oh my goodness.
And then go
Okay.
figure I got divorced years and years later, but the next girl I fell in love with
Hmm.
turned out to be from where I was supposed to be stationed as the preacher's
So you came back
702,
around.
but I never lived there. But I ended up having to go there to visit her family. So yeah, it was just very surreal.
Oh, that's so fun. So yeah, like the one way or another, there's a little pin in space and time with her name on it. You go like, no, 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 no. You took a detour. We got you back.
Yeah, I just and that's it. It was interesting because I guess just because maybe my math brain, my numbers brain, I love to
Hmm.
understand, and I don't want to say control, but sort of know what's going on. It's like math. You just
See through the
there's a
fog.
function. Yeah, and then to get thrown into 6 weeks of basic training where I had no control and didn't know what was coming.
The word surrender might come to mind.
I learned quickly. I learned quickly to surrender, and it just wasn't my. It's not my skill set. I'm
Hmm.
just the way my brain is wired and my nature. It was awkward with the military. Even
Sure.
when I was in it full force, I just I never felt comfortable completely.
Yeah, it being like the entrepreneurial mindset, it's not exactly the place where it's a bit more rigid. So that tracks.
But like you
In
said, the
the
regiment, the
mm,
regiment, the structure did help me in a lot of ways because I didn't have any structure. I wasn't regimented.
sure.
We had 8 kids in my family. You could get away with anything. You disappear for a week, they didn't even notice. So to go from that to here we are.
Well, what's the old phrase that people? It's coming back around, but the television advert that was on late at night, and it says, it's 8 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? And people think today that that's a joke thing, and it's like, no, that's real. That's 100%. You go like, just be in by the time the street lamps turn on, and you go, yeah, no, that's a thing.
That was the rules. Be home when it's dark out, and how do you wrangle up 8 kids and feed them and count them and make sure they all went to bed and didn't sneak out a window, and you know
Not
back
missing
then
body parts.
it was. So yeah, and then to go to basic training where somebody knew where you were every second and what you were going to be
Yeah.
doing next. And so yeah, it was a wake up call. But at the same time,
Goodness.
there are certain things about the military environment that were very satisfying and very.
Mm,
I liked the predictability of it once I got situated. So
sure.
yeah, a lot of good lessons for life.
I love that. Okay, let's do this. What's something in your kite flying adventures, we'll say it that way, that you are ever so glad that smartphones were not around to record?
Oh man, listen. I wish they still weren't around for the most part. I think it doesn't help as much as we think.
That's
But
fair.
um, in some ways, I wish there were smartphones because there are some moments in your life that you truly wish you captured. But who carried around a camera
Mm,
all the time? um, Social media, uh, using social media as your storybook for your life and
sure.
stuff like that. So, but no, I got to travel the world. When you're overseas in Tokyo in the Air Force, the one cool thing about being at Yokota Air Base was several planes coming and going, and I was living right on the tarmac, basically in a dorm.
Sure.
And you can walk down to the flight ops and for $5 jump on a C5 to Hong Kong for the weekend and stay at a $10 hotel for military guys over in Hong Kong and go shopping.
Hmm.
$100 you couldn't carry it all back. So,
Yeah,
yeah, there was a lot of cool stuff I wish I could recapture.
I like it. You flipped it the other way. We a lot of times have stories on the show where, let's say, infantry and shenanigans and things, and you go like, "Oh no, that one really didn't need to be on film."
Well, I don't know how I got picked as at basic training. I got picked as the guide for our marches, and
You looked confident. That's
no, worst guy ever to have in front of a large group of people trying to look structured. And my
No
whole
chrome dome
goal,
for you yelling at the crowd.
no, my goal was to make everybody laugh, so I
Fair.
could get people smirking and laughing to the point where we got in trouble many times, by our folks. So, yeah,
I
it,
get it.
it was a tough adjustment.
I get it. I get. Okay. Okay. Oh goodness. So, nearing the end of your service, what kind of drove the decision to retire?
Well, I didn't retire. I got out after 6 years. I had signed up for 4, and then I
Hmm.
reenlisted for 6, not knowing what I was getting into because
Oh,
just
okay.
a couple months later, my supervisor's son failed second grade math, and
Whoa.
I spent some time with him, and I showed him how to do some stuff that I knew, and I got a call from his teacher. And
Hmm.
he said, "Are you the guy that's talking to this kid? Because he's the worst math student in our class. And now he's teaching me stuff. What happened?"
You're like, this is. I've never seen this kind of a turnaround. What magic are you just like sprinkling on this?
Yeah. And so I got invited to go speak at a school. And
Too cool.
I went to my supervisor, my other supervisor, and I said, "Hey, can I get, an hour or two off in the afternoon to go speak to these kids down, like 15
Sure.
minutes away?" And he goes, "No." And I was like, "Oh,
Whoa.
okay." That's what we're
How
at.
very kind of you.
Yeah, yeah, like 0. Just yeah. Anyway, I remember his name. Just got never forget. But
Yeah.
um, and so I had to take personal time off to go visit the
Okay.
school, and I had never performed in front of kids or at a school or anything like that before. I just did this stuff for myself and my
Like no
friends and
public
family.
speaking, no anything like that at
Nothing.
all.
I was 18. I didn't
Sure.
even make it out of high school. No
Fair
college.
enough.
And the last thing on my menu was, go perform in front of a lot of people and, teach them things. So I do this 30, 40 minute show in front of the kids, and the teacher said, "Can you show some of the things you taught Travis?" And so I showed him some shortcuts in mental math and how to think about numbers. And I got a call back the next day, and they invited me to speak at every school in the school district. So now I
Whoa.
didn't have enough personal time to do that. So I had to go back and ask for time. And they said no.
Sure.
And so I took more personal time and I went and started visiting the schools. And one of the schools invited the parents. And
Hmm.
one of the parents was a reporter. and wrote an article in the Montgomery newspaper about this guy who's serving in the Air Force who came to my kid's school and freaked us out and beat the calculators. And then he showed my kid how to do some mental math. And that little story went on the wire. And I got a call from a national television show in New York City called Regis and Kathy Lee. It was
It's a small show. You may have heard of it.
morning show, 9 a.m. ABC,
Yeah.
and and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And so that inspired me to try to get out of the Air Force because I knew I had found something where I was using my gift for good. So I went
There
to
you
my
go.
supervisor and I said, can I please get out of the service? And he said, no. And I was like, oh, okay. So I manufactured an exit, and it took a couple months. It was a little
Okay.
awkward. Had to spend 30 days at the dorm during my dismissal to clean all the bathrooms and the dormitories, and whatever manual
They
labor they
put you
could
on latrine duty is what you're trying to
for
say.
30 days in front of all these guys.
Jesus.
Where I went from OSI to being, and then I was a computer programmer at Maxwell Air Force Base, or Gunter Air Force Station. And
Gotcha.
my dorm was near the cops and all these guys, and I was having fun. They were all friends. And then the last 30 days of my Air Force time, I was doing latrine duty, and it was a very humbling experience. And I remember how excited I was to start this new part of my life
Like I
as this
cannot get
guy.
away from you all fast enough.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I'm going to get invited to travel around the world and speak and do things and go on national TV shows and stuff. And so that
Yeah.
distraction kept me sane through the 30 days of
Yeah.
that. And I got out, and I started. I went on Regis Kathy Lee, and at the end of the interview, Regis says, "Scott, you're like a human calculator," and that's where I got my name, and I
Well,
trademarked
there
it.
you go.
And within a year, I was doing TV shows around the country, and got a book deal, and did infomercials, and on and on and on. So that was back in late '80s, even when
Yeah, yeah.
infomercials were still a new thing. So it happened quite quickly.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Well, first off, I think we have a giant thank you to Regis Philbin for giving you the moniker. And second, like, of all things, you're like, that does have a ring to it. Thank you, sir. I'll write that down.
And what's crazy is Regis passed away a couple of years ago, and before he
Yeah,
passed
yeah.
away, he was a guest host on a TV show in LA that I had been on a couple times, and they invited me back,
Gotcha.
and
Oh,
they informed Regis of the situation that here's this guy, he's the human calculator. They told my story,
yeah.
and then they said, by the way, Regis, you might not remember this, but you actually nicknamed him the human calculator, and he was so awestruck. He was just so glad and grateful that he had such an impact in my life and saw what I did
Oh,
with
that's
it. And
so
so it
great.
was full circle for Regis. And, I got a great picture with Regis and Larry King. They
Oh,
were
that's
both hosts
excellent.
that day, and I'd been on Larry's show many times. And
Yeah.
for Regis to see that, and I got to thank him face to face. And yeah, so full circle.
I mean, that's so wonderful. Because
Yes.
a lot of times you already know when you deal with some people things matter to, some things don't. And to have it where he's like, that I did that? Okay, I did good. I did good. Like
And
that kind of thing. I love that.
well, and it's one thing like if I ran into him in a restaurant and got
Sure.
to say thank you. It's another thing when there's a camera on his face and I got to see the replay and see his reactions and how much of an
Absolutely
impact it
wonderful.
had on him. So yeah, it was a great thrill to thank a person that had such an
Yeah.
impact in my life that didn't even really understand. I mean, the next day he had another show with 5 more guests, so you can't keep track of
Sure.
everything. So yeah, it was really nice to shake his hand.
That's just so wonderful. Like he gave you your name with just a conversation, and you go, I don't know how. Like that's just it's perfect. Is what
And
that is.
Regis is just being Regis. He's just
Exactly. Just talking. Just talking.
that's right. And he for him to just throw out that nickname, if you will.
Yeah.
in retrospect is really shocking because, let's see, 10 years later, I
Mhm.
discovered a pattern in numbers that I believe help everyone feel like a
Sure.
human calculator. And so to go from just Scott to Regis calling me the human calculator, and then 10 years later having an epiphany about numbers that is going to revolutionize the way people learn arithmetic, um, and make them feel like a human calculator, Regis couldn't even have ever imagined that.
Like you go, you just said something brilliant and witty, but you don't realize you gave me an identity. And I'm like, yeah, that's huge.
And
Like,
it was my first
and
show. It was my first national TV show.
well, you did a bang up job, good sir. I'm just saying.
It's crazy statistically.
Well, you already know it only needs one. That's all. That's all that a win starts with is just one.
Well, and I think that really gives me perspective because when I'm performing or working with a
Sure.
company or a group or teacher workshops, whatever, um,
Yeah.
I understand the significance that one person can have in somebody's life. And if I have a little kid in front of me who's afraid of math and
Mm.
I have a moment to change that, I respect that opportunity tremendously because you just never know what's going to come out of that. Now I've been doing this human calculator thing for, let's see, 12, 30, almost 40 years. And I've
Hmm.
met kids of kids of kids that, I visited their parents' school when they were a kid, so I got to see it full circle many times now.
Yeah, you're just the living legacy of like, no, no, no. I like there's a film, Doc Hollywood with
Michael
Michael J.
J.
Fox, and yeah, such a good. Like, I feel like I'm the only one that know about that, but it's such a good one. And it's the old town doctor, and it's like, no, I delivered your father, and you go, I think Doc has the keys. I'll just say, I think.
It is. It's very humbling to
So cool.
realize the potential you have in a person's life, and to
Yeah.
be haphazard about it would be, excuse me,
Mm,
just terrible. I'm really grateful to have. I have an attitude of gratitude towards
I love that.
the impact I
Saying
can
thank you
have on
does a lot.
others. Yeah, it does.
Well, you've sort of, let's say, jumped the gap a bit, but what was the first moment? And it may be the exact same one, but what's the first moment where you realized, okay, civilian life is going to be a touch different?
When I knew I was getting out of the Air Force, I was in Montgomery, Alabama, and
Okay.
I reached out to a friend of a friend. His name's Don Davenport, and he was the
Hmm.
biggest marketing guy in Alabama,
Okay.
Montgomery, Alabama. And he had a marketing agency, and they were working with all the biggest clients. And I asked if I
Hmm.
could take him to lunch and just explain to him what was going on, and see if he
Sure.
saw an angle that might help me, acclimate to civilian life. And
Sure.
Don, we had a great lunch. We ended up having several more in that next 30 to 60 days. And he really helped me understood the opportunity that was available to me and helped me skip many painful lessons that I would have gone through if I hadn't met with him. So always grateful to, I call him Triple D, Don Davenport. DDDs are his initials. So 3D, Triple
Oh, I
D.
love it. Triple D. Oh, my goodness. Now, I'll ask on the other end of it, is there anything that did not translate well?
In regards to what?
Coming out of the service into civilian life, is there something you go like, this didn't make sense to try and keep?
No, I was I
No?
was I was very
All worked?
content. I was, you do 30 days latrine duty, you're ready to exit.
That's
That's
fair.
the
That's
yeah.
fair.
I'm out.
So, were there any kind of with the at this point like four times reborn? Were there any identity struggles like when you got out of the not so figurative latrine?
Well, you realize that there's not a check coming on the 1st or 15th from the government that is coming, and it's going to be good. You're all of a sudden you're responsible for generating revenue, and that's quite a wake up call to go from being an employee to being an entrepreneur. So, uh, one of the things I've learned, Meade, is that uh, having a gift for numbers and being the human calculator is one thing. Being a business
Sure.
manager or an entrepreneur or running companies, things like that, that's a whole different skill set. That it
Definitely.
doesn't matter if you're the human calculator when it comes to that stuff. And so I've tried all combinations of managers and different ways to manage those parts of my life without being that guy. Because as I've learned, it's really difficult to represent yourself in any
Mm,
negotiation. It's always better to have somebody else. So I got lucky with a great
definitely that.
attorney early on, Mark Wright, which helped me out a lot. And
Okay.
I tried a few different avenues, and you know, nothing stays the same. You always have to be evolving. And now I
Sure.
have AI managers and agents that do most of the stuff for me. So yeah, it's a
Whether
whole
you
brave
want
new
to or
world.
not.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, uh, where we're at with this transition right now, not to get too far ahead, but it is that
Sure.
this environment really makes you rethink how you do what you do and why you do what you do, and makes it easier to package, and uh, having a professional always there ready to talk to you or give you
Sure.
feedback with no fear of making you angry or upset. Just, hey, you asked, here's the
No more
situation.
yes men, that kind of thing of like, well, how about this, boss? And you go, yeah, we had a phrase, we used to call those brown noses, like not to be crude about it, but it's real. And you go, listen, if I wanted someone to say yes to me, I'd get a machine that just, bash the yes button. If I'm making a mistake, call me on it because I'm about to go and perform.
There's nowhere to hide now.
Mm-mm. I
So
love it.
yeah, I went through all that. So very exciting times. And that I'm called the human calculator. There's the human, and then you got the calculator, the physical object that people use. The
Sure.
human, which was me. And so I became I got in the Guinness Book of World Records as the fastest human calculator, and knew that I was probably the fastest person on the planet Earth. And that's quite quite a claim, quite a honor. And
Well, I mean,
um,
you live up to it though. So it's like, well, there
well,
it is.
but I have some really good friends, and they're very straightforward with me. And uh, the show started being too much about me. I was like, look at me, look what I can
Mm,
do, look at me, 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 me.
fair enough.
And they helped me transform the show into, okay, show them who you are, but then how can you help them? And that simple
Definitely.
strategy or approach just changed my entire presentation, the delivery, everything, because I was going somewhere with it instead of just look at me, which was very
Yeah,
refreshing.
well, it flips it on the head of you're no longer peacocking your teaching, and that
It's so
you
great.
can be great, you can be shiny. Yeah, well, that's the thing, and that's the guy that no one invite to drink. You go like, oh, let's go out and party, not with him. Like, oh, but he's famous, and you go, yeah, he's also boring and rude. You'll find out, I promise. Like,
Yeah, and so that was my whole goal ever since I guess it was 94, 95. I just
hmm,
I just decided to try to become a better human instead of a
I like
faster
that.
calculator, and that
Hmm.
really created a situation where the students' reactions to my shows was so much more genuine and authentic and inspiring that I just, to me, it's a dream come true to have a gift that I can use for good to help others. So, yeah, that's really been satisfying.
That's just wonderful. And like all I can think of like really just absolutely wonderful shows and in the realm of science, like shows that I absolutely adore, like Mr. Wizard's World and all, watch Mr. Wizard and all of that. I actually we have for my children like hand signed magazines from that family and all of that. And you
Wow.
go, this is stuff that stuff it means something. Those are things that yeah, you can look at Mr. Wizard and like it was there at the birth of like Laserdisc and really amazing technology, and you're doing the same thing where you go, well, what if we broke down walls? What if we taught someone something? Like you go, yeah, I like, and I think that's the human aspect. There's There's the man that can be the peacock and can be on the totem pole and like, look how high I am. And you know what's really fun though? Drinks in the parlor and playing, fun tunes and sharing stories and all of that. Like being unobtainable. I mean, that's neat for about a half a second. I think is about the time frame where you go, that's cool. But people want to hear you smell, share the same air, and the fact that you're doing that shows, humility and humanity, and I applaud you for it.
Well, I had an interesting moment. I journal a lot, and I don't know if you remember,
Oh,
but
okay.
the Bic pens that used to have, they still do. They have four colors. You could click blue,
Oh
black,
yeah, the
green,
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
red,
Mhm.
and so
I
I would
always
use
used to
different.
try and push them all down at one time.
Oh, interesting. Well, I would use different colors for different things. Obviously, green
Oh,
is
okay.
money, red is
Sure.
stress. Like I just had a color coded journal. And when you flip
Oh,
through, you
okay.
can be like, oh man, look how stressed I was during this little run. And
Yeah.
look how excited I
Mm.
was here. So it really does add a whole nother level of understanding your journals. I had in a moment where I caught myself writing and I started a sentence with the word I. And when you write a
Mm.
capital I, there's a one, and then there's a bar on the bottom and a bar on the top. That's how we
Sure.
write a capital I, right? And for some
Mm-hmm.
reason, I noticed that if I'm that one in the middle of that I, there's a bar
Mm-hmm.
above me and a bar below me, and it's just me bouncing back and forth, me. It was like my ego. And
I
so I
love it.
decided to rewrite the letter I, and I made it a small I. And when you do a small
Okay.
I, you've got the one, but then you got a little zero, a little halo on top. And
Mm-hmm.
I said a prayer. I just said, help me understand how to be a better human. And
How about that?
that was the portal. That was the difference. That silly little symbology of allowing things in instead of me just talking about me. And I went through this transformation because of one letter and just writing it differently. So I share that when I
That's
speak at
amazing.
events, and it really resonates with a lot of people because,
And I can understand why.
yeah, we all get stuck in our own way. And it really helped me get out of my way.
I love that. Well, to those of you listening at home, if you're loving what you're hearing as much as we're loving what we're doing, smash that subscribe button. And we've touched only just a little bit, but what if you needed to wrap it up in a little parcel? What is your mission now?
Well, I didn't know this when I started. I really just thought I was going to be an entertainer and
Hmm.
became an edutainer, educational
Fair enough.
entertainer. And um, the late 90s, we were all going to die from Y2K. And I was really nervous about that.
That was true.
And
Oh my goodness, the computers with the stickers of like, are you Y2K compatible?
yeah, and I was a programmer for the last 2 years. I was in the Air Force, so I knew a little bit about understanding what was going on with Y2K. But
Sure.
in when I got out of the service in '88, I
Okay.
I ended up in Los Angeles for a month because I had been asked to go on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson,
Sure.
and it took a
Absolutely
lot
brilliant.
longer than I thought to get on there. Um,
Okay.
and I didn't have any resources. I just got out of the service. I had no paycheck coming in. I mean, I was a whole new thing. And I ended up in Florida. A buddy of mine flew me down there to help him with his new company. And
Okay.
uh, I was like, yeah, I'll do anything, because I wasn't monetizing this human calculator thing yet.
Sure.
I was just getting started. And he had invented a glow in the dark doorknob that he was
Wildly
selling to
specific.
hotels as a safety
Ah, okay.
device for people in a room that don't know where it is. So if the alarm goes off at night, you can at least find the door.
Sure.
And I was like, all right, well, he's paying me, and I got to go try to sell these things. So he gave me a rental car and a hotel room for 30 days down in Florida and said, okay, here you go. Go sell some light bulbs,
Okay.
glow in the dark doorknobs. Uh, and after 30 days, I had sold exactly zero glow in the dark doorknobs. And
To be fair, this does sound like a weird bar wager, like a pub wager where you go like, hold on, I have an invisible fire extinguisher. You
it,
go.
it,
Like,
it was, I was in a tough spot. So it seemed like it made sense. And so after
sure.
30 days, I lost the car, I lost the hotel room, and I wasn't sure
Okay.
what to do. And my sister bought me an airplane ticket to fly out to Phoenix, Arizona, where I ended up living for over 30 years. So, I flew
Okay.
in and it was beautiful weather during the winter. I said, okay, what is this? Never
Uh-huh.
left. But
Okay.
uh, the day before I left Florida, I was waiting for my plane, and I walked into the West Palm Beach Public Library, and I was
Okay.
just, I go to the math section, which is not
Sure.
very crowded, and it's always in the
Mm-hmm.
back. And I found a book, and this guy said, hey, there's a pattern in our calendar. And if you're good at crunching numbers, you can figure out what day of the week a date falls on. So I
Okay.
wrote this formula down on a little 3.5 by 5 index card with a little pencil at the library. And I got on the plane the next day, and I was wiring this equation, this algorithm into my head, and I
Uh-huh.
could do it. You could tell me a date, and I could figure out
Sure.
what day of the week it was on. And I
Too
landed
fun.
in Phoenix. My sister picked me up at the airport, and I said, "What's your birthday? Tell me a date, like your birthday, whatever you
Sure.
want, and I'll tell you what day of the week it was." And she tells me her
Uh-huh.
birthday, and I said, "Oh, that was a Saturday." And she goes, "Who cares?" I was like, "Oh man, I just did a lot of work there."
Thank you for deflating my feel good. I appreciate that.
I was on cloud nine. I went to cloud zero, and that's how I landed in Phoenix. And I borrowed her boyfriend's bike and
Okay.
rode a bike from school to school, asking them to let me come in and talk. And
Okay.
so it's just I go back to those days and I think, holy cow, I was sleeping on the couch, riding a bike to schools unsolicited, hoping they would book me days, weeks, or months later. And so it
Sure.
was it was a rough start. And that was back in 88, 89. But things picked
Goodness.
up very quickly after that. So yeah, it was very humbling. That was a tough year, getting out of the service and starting something that, I had no idea what I was doing basically.
So what was the turning point? When did the as people will lovingly say, when did the overnight success hit?
My first business partner, JB, uh,
Okay.
he said, "Hey, let's sit down. Let's make a book. Let's sell something so you don't have to be there all the time, and just help
Sure.
me materialize this business." And we started a company, and
Okay.
we moved to Washington D.C. We thought we had to be near the National Education Association and all these big organizations to have an impact with
Mm,
education, and
gotcha.
uh, we hired a big PR firm, and they were supposed to help me get
Mm,
on all these shows. And after 2 weeks of sitting in their office watching them try to book me on every show around in DC, they booked me on exactly zero shows.
ouch.
And I had been sitting there for 2 weeks watching them, listening to them. How do they do it? What are they doing? How do they approach it? And I said, give me an office for a day and let me try to book myself.
Okay.
And I, less than a month later, I was booked on CNN. And I'll never forget the date. It was April 4th, 1990. It was a Wednesday. And
Hmm.
I went on CNN. Uh, Bobby Batista was the host, and it was, they were giving me like 15 minutes on CNN. And, couldn't believe it. I don't know how I talked him into
Hmm.
that. But um, so JB and his business, his brother, Dennis, is another partner. Um,
Hmm.
they decided to set up a 1-800 number so I could say that 1-800 number and sell our books. And
Okay.
uh, we got it all set up like to the day. We were checking the number as we were driving into CNN. Denny had one of the new mobile phones in his car, and we were driving to
Oh, big
CNN.
Motorola. Oh, the car
Oh
phone.
man, it was a
Gotcha.
big deal. We were
That was
mobile,
space
and
age.
it at the time he was cutting edge. And
Oh yeah.
um, we pull into CNN. We're all excited. The 800 number is going to this big place in Nebraska where there's thousands of people ready to answer the phone and take our orders. And we pull in, and I get to the green room, and JB and Denny are with me. And the producer comes in and says, Scott, this is a remote. You're going to go in this room. There's a camera. Bobby's in New York. She's going to interview you from New York. And all we ask is you can't say any 800 numbers. We don't allow advertising like that on CNN from our guests. And all of us were
Okay.
just so bummed out. And
You're like,
Denny
how do
says
I
to me,
encodify this?
yeah, so Denny says to me, and JB, I think he goes, hey, if you get out the 800 number, we'll go buy you a new car. And
Okay.
I needed a car. So I was like, all right, I'm motivated. So I get on CNN and I'm killing it. And Bobby Batista says, hey, do we have anybody wants to call in and ask Scott a question? Well, people were calling in. And the first person that calls in says, Scott, how do we get a hold of you to book you to come to our school? And do you have any books that I can get for my kids? I said, well, I
Okay.
do. And I do visit schools. My office is in DC. And Bobby breaks in and says, Scott has a 1-800 number. It's 1-800, try math, whatever it was. And
Okay.
when she said it, I was just so freaked out. And I said, that's right, Bobby. It's 1-800-879-6284. She did the letters. I did the numbers just to double it up.
Sure.
And I could hear JD and Denny in the green room yelling and screaming, yeah,
just losing it.
And so, and that ended up going 20 minutes live on CNN. And at the end of the interview, I said, Bobby, if you could just give out that number one more time for the people that missed it during the interview. And she said it again, and I repeated it numerically again. And I walked out, and we all did a group hug, and went out and bought me a car that next day. So, and then, we did $250,000 in sales that day off of CNN, and I was like, okay, we found our niche of how we need to do this.
Yeah, definitely that.
So I went from trying to book one school at a time to one show at a time, and we fired the PR firm that we had hired to book me on all these shows.
I can't imagine why.
and so, yeah, but again, I wouldn't have understood or respected what it takes to get people on national television unless I had to do it myself. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to play most of the roles that I had to have in order to get where I am.
Well, I think I'm required for everyone listening. What was the secret trick to get you on CNN? What was the angle? How did you just ring up and say, "Oh yes, I work in the mailroom. Also, I'm really good at maths."
Yeah, it was. The best part was listening to other people try to sell me for 2 weeks and seeing the gaps they had.
You just got to see what not to do.
Yeah, and then the first few shows I hit up didn't get any response or any reaction sometimes, but I was working out my pitch. And I'm telling you, people take that as frustrating. And I looked at it as, holy cow, I'm really figuring this out. I'm learning everything not to say and what they need to hear. And boy, that really helped me sell myself and sell my products. So I'm grateful for that experience of going through that tough time.
I love it. And that's, it's a honest thing to say where you go, well, who can talk about you better than you? Roughly no one. So I know what you've wrestled with and the whole thing of like feeling like you're braggadocious or otherwise. And you go, no, I'm just a businessman. And it can sound flat or it can sound however you'd like it. But the thing about it is, I think where it really breaks is you see that you have value just in you, and you go, well, how do I take care of me? Like I've talked about, being a pilot, and what's the rule on a jetliner? Put on your oxygen mask first. You take care of you get to take care of everyone else. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, have the I don't matter because, I need to feel altruistic or otherwise. And you go, well, you can't help if you're dead. So you should probably figure out a way to make sure that you're taken care of. And it does come back to your point about the I. And there is that in the crisis. There is that in the moments where you go, ooh, where's the food coming from? And as long as you get out of that moment, I think everything's okay.
It's priceless because as I meet all these people in my life now, I'm the chairman of world championships and meet most of the top kids from around the world that are going to be record breakers and all these things. My experience is priceless to them just because I can relate to their situation and help identify what they're missing, what gaps they have, and how to help fill them. So yeah, I'm grateful to not just be the human calculator, um, but to understand all the things that happen around me to allow that to happen.
I love it. So I'll ask this: how did you get involved in the great story of basketball? What's the story with Herkimer? The small
So,
thing.
COVID hit in 2020. 2019, my dad had some health issues, so I was back home in upstate New York from Phoenix. And I was introduced to a book from 1952 that claimed that
Hmm.
basketball was invented in my little hometown of Herkimer, New York. And
Hmm.
I read that book and I called BS. I said, listen, I would have heard about this when I was a kid growing up if it was real. Uh, I read the book and I said, if this book is real, then Herkimer deserves to be on the map. So I went to the
Sure.
Historical Society at Herkimer and decided I was going to snuff out this story in a couple of days. Just go look at the old newspapers and say, hey, look, this book is full of it. There's no way this
You're like,
happened
where's
like
where's
this.
your microfilm and microfiche? I need to dig this up.
And newspapers from the 1800s. This happened in 1891. So
Sure.
microfiche, that's all I had for a lot of the
Yes,
stuff.
indeed.
And
Yes, indeed.
uh, after about a week, I found more evidence to support the story of
It
origin in
went the other
basketball.
way.
I did. I was very surprised. And after a few months, I had created quite a trove of evidence to show that there's more to the story and Herkimer.
How
And
about
then
that?
I ran into these two guys in my research, George Fausti and Daryl Fausti. They had written a book called
Okay.
Black Ice, where they rewrote
Okay.
the history of ice hockey. They showed that colored leagues were the major origin point of ice hockey and rewrote ice hockey. And they got destroyed for a decade by everybody in hockey. And now they're honored at hockey tournaments across Canada and they drop the puck to
Too
start the
funny.
game. And so they went through heck with that. Well, when they
Sure.
finished their hockey story, they decided to try this Herkimer story. And I found an article they published in 2010 saying, hey, we're going to start looking into this Herkimer basketball origin story.
Okay.
So I reached out to them and said, hey, I'm from Herkimer, born in Herkimer. I'm a best-selling author. I've got a TV show
Sure.
on the History Channel. I have access to some stuff. What evidence do you guys have that we could put together? So for the next year and a half, we worked on all this together and we put out a book in 2022 called Nay's Myth, Myth,
Hmm.
and put our evidence together to show not only all the evidence in Herkimer that proves something happened there before Springfield ever heard of basketball, but also all the nefarious activities that Springfield and the Naismith family had done to hold this story back. And
How about that?
and now I got to tell you, it has been the most contentious 5 years of my life. Trying to rewrite basketball history. Springfield doesn't like you. Naismith family's not going to like you.
Can't
Kansas
imagine why.
University, they're not happy with my efforts. Sotheby's, on and on. 135-year-old story that, isn't complete. And
How about that?
so to go from the human calculator where you walk into a school or a corporate event and everybody loves you and wants to meet you afterwards
Sure.
and do your birthday and have fun. And that was my life, play golf every day and just have a good time,
Sure.
to being hated by everybody I was up against, including half the people in my hometown. They thought I was crazy. And what am I doing? They're
How
going to
about that?
embarrass the village. And the village is going to heck anyway. Main Street looks like
Like all
crap. So
all 7,200 of them.
that's right. And we got nothing to lose. Why not go for this? Because Cooperstown, where Baseball Hall
Sure.
of Fame is 28 miles away from us on Route 28. We're literally that close to the Baseball Hall of Fame. And if it's true that basketball
Sure.
was invented right there, um,
You're like,
it would
maybe there should be a
transform.
small monument, a little round thing or something.
Well, actually, the big basketball is what I brought in, and I
There
still
we go.
ridiculed for that. But it's very symbolic, the big basketball. I When I decided to go all in on this story, um,
Sure.
it was 2020, 2021. COVID was still going on,
Okay.
And I drove
Sure.
across the country to go back to Phoenix because upstate New York is just too cold in the winter for me after living in Phoenix for all these years. And I
Surface of the
was
sun does a little bit to you.
just a little, right, a whole different
Just a
mindset.
little bit.
And I was driving through a place in Illinois called Casey, Illinois. Never heard of it, never
Okay.
seen it before. And the exit sign was huge. And it had like a dozen things on it that you could go and see. And I'm like, how in the middle of nowhere is this little town got a dozen things that you have to go see? Well, this well off couple had
Mm.
purchased all the bad buildings on Main Street in Casey, Illinois, tore them
Okay.
down, and then commissioned artists to build the largest things in the world.
Well, that's like public works projects, in the United States, like places where you go, this place has nothing. We should probably have the world's biggest beehive. And you go, why? We don't even have flowers. And you go, make a beehive. I promise. People will come to see it.
Well, and this place, Casey, Illinois, went from nothing to. I had the big thing on Main Street is they have the largest rocking chair in the world. It's 3 stories high. And this is during COVID, remember. I had to wait in
Yeah.
line to get a selfie at the rocking chair. That's
that's
how
so funny.
busy Casey was
Yeah.
during COVID. And so that's when it hit me. It's like, okay, the biggest basketball. If we're the home of basketball, the birthplace of basketball, we got to put the biggest basketball in the world. So I put that in our development plan. And to this day, I'm still ridiculed about the big basketball. But when it does get put up, when we're officially, like right now, we're down to days. Tomorrow, within a couple of days here, CBS is airing a huge special about our efforts from the past 5 years. 3 days later, the Hall of Fame announces who the finalists are for the class of 26. And I have the 2 guys from Herkimer are on the ballot. Our foundation, the Herkimer 9 Foundation, got both of these guys on the ballot in Springfield, which was extremely contentious, you can imagine. So,
as you've mentioned.
So now,
I think you're just a bit of a prima donna. Like, it sounds like you whine about favoritism a lot, Scott. Are you aware of this?
Here's my problem. I've identified it very clearly. I learned arithmetic in 3rd grade, and I figured out an easier way to get it. So by the end of 3rd grade, I was doing it in my head faster than my teachers, and I rewrote how we do arithmetic. In 1999, I invented a new calendar to save us from Y2K because I thought we were all going to die from the Gregorian calendar we use. And then to try to rewrite basketball history. I like my friends say, I don't take on anything easy. I go for the big ones. So there's my 3.
I absolutely love that. So, you've mentioned golf, you've mentioned basketball, and I know you keep particularly boring company. People probably haven't heard of them, but guys like, I think he's called Charles Barkley. How did you get involved with these extremely boring people?
So my first tour as the Human Calculator was in 1990, and we picked Philadelphia as the first city to tour.
Okay.
Symbolic because, Philadelphia, brotherly love and all that. And
sure,
I had been stationed down in Alabama, and I watched Charles Barkley go through Auburn University and how divided the state of Alabama was about Charles. And so I knew quite a bit about him. And I show up at my first radio interview ever as the Human Calculator on tour. And I walk in the green room, and there's Charles Barkley. He had just been picked by the Philadelphia 76ers to be on their team. And so Charles Barkley and I sit in the green room. I've got 30 minutes with him. And it was just an amazing moment because I knew so much about him anyway. And then a few years later, he got with the Phoenix Suns. So he's been out in Phoenix for 30 years. So it's just a dream come true. And Charles is such a genuine guy and doesn't BS you about anything. He's like, dude, here's what you need to do. He was fantastic. So I just ran into him on a golf course a couple months ago. We see, it's really an honor to have Charles play a role like that in your life, to be there at
Definitely.
that right moment.
Well, it's also, I would say, it's very kind of the Phoenix Suns to bring on such a short gentleman. It's a lot of times it's the very overly tall men that get placed in basketball, and it's kind of them to choose someone short like
Well,
Charles.
and you can remember Charles took the Chicago Bulls to Game 6 for
Yeah,
the end. I mean, we were right there. It was very exciting, and Charles was playing amazing. I mean, he really was an
yeah,
amazing player. He's become a better announcer, I think, than a player. But he was an amazing player. So a great person to have
I love it.
play a role in your life.
Too fun. So going back a little bit to service, like what would you say to veterans that are currently in transition? What's something that they need to hear?
Well, thank you for your service. First off, I
Fair
never
enough.
take that for granted. I'm a big fan of the military and realize the role they play and the sacrifices that these people accept when they go in. And to be on call 24 hours a day, to your brain constantly being put into that situation where you don't know and you just got to be ready at all times is uh, such a demand and a sacrifice, to their families and things. So uh,
Definitely.
I would just remind them to be grateful for everything they got out of the military and not treat it as a disadvantage or a waste of time, but as a blessing,
I love
an
it.
opportunity to continue on in our communities, serving our communities as a veteran who served in the military still stands out to this day. As you can see, I was just at the Phoenix Open this week, and they had Wednesday
Hmm.
was service day, and they had to fly over, big celebration for all the veterans, and they deserve every ounce of energy that these things happen. So uh, don't be shy about being a veteran. Let people know. Put it on your license plate. There's
I love it.
it's better than a college. You see a bumper sticker that they went to this college or that college. That's great, but man, you served in the Marines for 20 years. Holy cow! I want to hang out
Hmm.
with you. I want to hear some stories. So don't be
Oh, there are
shy.
stories to be had. There are
Yeah,
stories to be had. Let's say
and
it.
and unlike anything else, there's nothing that compares to the corporate world. So I would
Sure.
just be proud and be grateful to have an opportunity to continue to contribute to our society with that on your resume. Because the more we have out there, the better off we are. Even now, you can see a lot of companies are always searching for veterans to employ. The VA has an
Sure.
incredible program that helps place military folks getting out into the corporate world. And you can see
Sure.
how they're desired. So companies appreciate and understand that these folks have sacrificed and have been under a system that is manageable, that can translate into being more user friendly in the commercial spaces out there, in the commercial world.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I love being able to help with because I see both sides of it, where I know what it looks like on the in, I know what it looks like on the out. And you go, well, how does that translate? And you go, it works well. You just need to know how to reshape the lens because the skills are transferable, but the verbiage is not. I'll say it that way. So a lot of people they're in and they like I don't know how this translates. You brought up corporate, it does, but figuring out how to tell your story in a way that is, I think the way I explain it is it's like a good joke. If you need to explain the joke, it's not funny.
Right.
And that's kind of the same thing. If you can give someone something that they get it and it's like a little ball and you can just pass it to them and they go, "Great, I can hold this in the hand." Then it makes sense. And it's not easy, but it is rewarding. I'll say it that way.
Yeah, I'm very grateful I got to serve, and I wouldn't have done it if I'd have known what I was going to go through. And
That's fair.
you know, so hallelujah for people that stick it out for 20, 25, 30 years. God bless you. I mean, you really
There we go.
you have to conform. You're not going to fit in if you don't
Sure.
conform. So those people have that ability, and I think companies are looking for people that have that.
Sure. Definitely. So on the flip side, what as far as the world, not military, like civilian, what if you could drop a thought, some realization into their minds instantly, what's something they need to know?
Help me understand your question.
Like in reference to veterans, those in the service, those that have transitioned out, what's something that maybe they don't know or misunderstand, or like they've got it all wrong? What's something like that you want them to know?
Oh, that's interesting. I guess, I mean, the first thing that jumped out of my brain there is that I think it might be hard for veterans to understand how respected they are. I
Mm,
think they take it for granted because they made money. They have retirement. They have a lot of these things. I just don't think they understand how important it is for people to know that they did serve and that they are veterans. A lot of guys just sort of go below the radar and maybe not talk about it. And
okay,
I think veterans need to realize that, it's a calming sense for a lot of people. I still
okay,
to this day have many, many friends that are veterans and can still, just feel the difference. There's some camaraderie that is
definitely
unmatched in the regular world.
love it. So, what is something on a completely different note? What's say a telly show or film or something that is either so ridiculous or bad that you can't stop but laugh at it, or something where like they go, "Wow, they really nailed it on the head as far as military life." What's a favorite of yours?
Hmm. A favorite show that personifies the
Film,
military.
movie, anything. What's
Wow.
something that you end up watching more than you realize it?
Well, I mean, I hate to say, I mean, this goes way back. Some people probably don't even remember this movie, but The Silly Officer and a Gentleman.
Oh
To
my
to
goodness.
to see how
For those
crazy
that
that
don't
can.
know, watch the scene where he carries the woman out. You'll get the joke.
Yeah, and the idea that there's a person in charge of you that can just uh, control your life. I mean, it completely, like you said right at the beginning of our interview, the word surrender comes up. I
Hmm.
mean, you don't
It's
have an
true.
option. So uh, that movie really made it crystal clear that uh, I only feel like doing 20 push-ups. Well, we don't care what you think is good,
That's
a good enough.
adorable, Snowflake. Get going.
Yeah, exactly. So I needed that. I had
Sure.
a pretty loose life going, and it was good to have that regimen.
Fair enough. Oh, goodness. Well, Scott, thank you so much for coming. And I'll ask for everyone, what's the best way for everyone to contact to get in connection with you?
Humancalculator.com. And on social media, I'm at Human Calculator, and I'm still performing at schools, doing teacher workshops, corporate events, and now I'm launching the National Counting Bee. But I also do corporate counting bees. Companies have me come in and do my human calculator show. And then at the end, we do a little counting bee to find who their fastest mathlete is. And it's
Oh,
hilarious. The last one I did was here in Phoenix for an aviation company. And they got all these salespeople and
sure.
CEOs and smart executives. And we're doing the
Very type
counting
A
bee.
personalities.
And the winner was the guy who runs the warehouse. Not even nothing to
The
do
man
with
who does
sales.
logistics every time.
It was amazing, and everybody was in shock, and he just stepped up and destroyed everybody. So it really humanizes the numbers, because I'm not trying to make everybody a math whiz. I'm just trying to help people feel more
Sure.
comfortable and confident with numbers. And there is one thing I want to share with you: the the
Please.
pattern in numbers that I discovered that I think is going to change the way people learn arithmetic. So I
Oh,
discovered this
definitely.
right before Y2K on 9 9
Okay.
99. I was playing
Hmm.
golf with Alice Cooper, who has been one of my best friends for over 30 years. And
Also, really boring company, might I say.
amazing guy. He turned 78 the other day and he's still doing 200 shows a year. I mean, he
Whoa.
runs our Bible study. He's brilliant. He's a wordsmith, on and on. Anyway, uh, on 9/9/99, I had invented a new calendar to save us from Y2K, and it was
Mhm.
supposed to come out that day in a big article in Phoenix. And I got a note the night before saying they were going to hold it off another week. And I reached out to them, but it was too late at night. I was like, next week isn't 9999. The reason I had you do this article was to capture the 9999 for Y2K. And I showed up at golf the next day, and Alice and I were playing, and he goes, "Hey, Scott, don't worry. Everything happens for a reason. Wasn't supposed to happen today." And I go, all right. I don't know if I agree with that, but okay. And we got to the 18th hole, and he said, "Hey, I wrote a song called 18. 1 plus 8 is 9. Today's 999. How come 18 adds up to 9?" And I said, "Alice, that's easy. Any number times 9, that answer will add up to 9. Like 3 times 9 is 27. 2 and 7 is 9. 6 times 9 is 54. 5 and 4 is 9. I gave him a couple more examples, and he goes, "Okay, I don't care." And I'm driving home thinking about this. and I had invented a new calendar. It's a 13-month calendar. And I looked at the number 13. And for some reason, my brain went, 1 plus 3 is 4. 13 take away 4 is 9. And it was 9999, 9 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, what the heck is this? So I try it with the number 11. 1 and 1 is 2. 11 minus 2 is 9. And I started trying it with more and more numbers, and it kept working.
So you're coming over onto my side now because the magic is in primes, good sir. 13, 7, those are magic numbers.
Well, and my book, my best-selling book is called Math Magic. And I felt like, what did I miss here? What's going on? And to be honest with you, when I kept doing it, it kept working. Like I tried it with 22. 2 and 2 is 4. 22 minus 4 is 18. And that answer, 1, 8, adds up to 9. I was freaking out. I called my old math teacher and I said, "Hey, what is this called?" Because I thought I had missed one day in 3rd grade when they taught this. It was so simple. And I'm like, here I am in the Guinness Book. Well, and I'm in the Guinness Book of Records as the human calculator. And I didn't know this little pattern that everything goes back to the number 9. And so come to find out, I didn't miss it. Nobody really cared about it. And it took me a couple of years to figure out. But try this now. All of your viewers and listeners, think of your age. And now add those 2 digits together and take that total and subtract it from your age. And the answer you get will be a number that adds up to 9. And this simple exercise is what I believe exercises the calculator in our brain, because it's a natural pattern. It's not memorization, which is over here. So that's my mission that you asked about earlier. My mission is the human calculator is to reach every kid on the planet Earth before they're 9 years old about this pattern, so that when they are 9, every number they see every day for a whole year will go back to their age, the number 9, and help them learn all their math facts and feel like numbers are their friends. And now they can go learn higher math. But right now, the kids are just memorizing their math facts. They don't understand the logic or the patterns of numbers, and it all falls apart by algebra. So I call it Chapter 0. It's the missing chapter, and it's going to change the way kids learn math. That's my mission now. And my calendar. I'm still working on that.
Okay. Oh, I mean, it's all brilliant. And thank you so much for sharing.
Well, thank you for having me. God bless veterans. I'm grateful to be considered one, but man, I'll tell you, especially now, everybody knows everything with social media, and for you to sign up to serve now, you got to have a good mindset. You're not going in there by accident. Sure. And so God bless the military.
Indeed that. Well, we have more brilliant stories coming soon, and to support the channel directly, be sure to join the tribe on Patreon. Cheers all.
I explained 7 is spelled with even. It's not an even number. It's an odd number. So we should rename 7 to be spelled S-O-D-D, Sod. I said, everybody give it a try. Sod. Say Sod. And the kids were laughing hysterically. It turns out that's a swear word in Norwegian. So